Nobody talks about the moment a person realizes they have disappeared from someone's world. Not the dramatic exit, not the loud goodbye, just the quiet, creeping absence that leaves the other person standing in an empty room, reaching for something that used to be there. That is where the real power lives. Not in the noise, in the silence. Human beings are not rational when it comes to loss. We have been wired since the beginning of our existence to chase, to pursue, to want back what was once available and is now gone. This is not sentiment. This is not weakness. This is biology dressed in the clothes of emotion. And once you understand this wiring, once you truly see how the human mind responds to withdrawal, you will never look at your own presence the same way again. Let us begin with something called the scarcity principle. In 1975, a psychologist named Stephen Werkel conducted a simple experiment involving cookies in a jar. 2 jars sat before participants, one filled with 10 cookies, one with 2. The cookies were identical, same recipe, same taste, same everything. Yet the cookies from the nearly empty jar were consistently rated as more desirable, more valuable, more appealing. The mind does not assess worth based on what something is. It assesses worth based on how available something is. And this principle, born from a jar of cookies, extends far beyond food and far deeper into the territories of human connection, attraction, and obsession. When you are everywhere, you become background noise. When you are always available, you become furniture. People do not obsess over what they can reach whenever they want. They obsess over what was once close and then, without warning, became distant. Think about the last person who consumed your thoughts. Chances are it was not the one who responded to every message within seconds. It was not the one who cleared their schedule every time you asked. It was the one who was there, fully present, genuinely warm, and then, for reasons you could not fully explain, became harder to reach. Their silence was deafening. Their absence sat in your chest like a stone. You replayed conversations, searched for meaning, wondered what you had done. You thought about them not because they were extraordinary. You thought about them because your mind refused to accept the incompleteness of the story. This is the psychology of intermittent reinforcement. The same mechanism that keeps people feeding coins into slot machines keeps people emotionally tethered to those who give and withhold in unpredictable patterns. A consistent presence, positive or negative, becomes predictable, and the brain adapts. It stops firing. It stops reaching. But an inconsistent presence, one that is sometimes warm, sometimes distant, sometimes available, and then suddenly quiet, keeps the brain in a permanent state of low-grade hunger. That hunger is attention. That hunger is thought. That hunger, when it grows strong enough, becomes what most people would simply call obsession. Now, before you mistake this for manipulation, understand the distinction. Manipulation is a deliberate performance designed to deceive. What we are talking about is something else entirely. We are talking about the reclamation of your own value. We are talking about what happens when you stop over-explaining, stop over-giving, stop making yourself endlessly readable to people who have never had to work to understand you. We are talking about the radical act of choosing yourself first, and what that choice does to the room you just walked out of. There is a concept in social dynamics called the mirror effect. People begin to see you the way you present yourself. If you arrive with urgency, with need, with the quiet desperation of someone who requires validation to feel whole, others sense this at a level they cannot always articulate. They pull back. They grow comfortable taking more than they give. But when you arrive from a place of fullness, when you carry yourself as someone whose time is genuinely valuable, whose attention is genuinely selective, the dynamic inverts. You are no longer the one reaching. You become the one being reached for. Withdrawal is not coldness. It is a mirror, returned to its rightful owner. It is the act of saying, I was here. I gave you access to me. And now I am choosing to take that access back. Watch what happens in the mind of the person left behind. Watch how quickly the casual becomes urgent. Watch how the person who never initiated suddenly finds themselves reaching out first. Watch how the one who never seemed particularly interested starts paying very close attention. The dark corner of this psychology lives in what it reveals about human nature. We do not want what we have. We want what we have lost, or what we fear losing, or what we suspect we may never fully have. This is not flaw. This is not failure. This is the architecture of desire itself. Desire requires distance. Desire requires uncertainty. Desire requires the possibility of absence. And when you remove yourself, truly, quietly, without announcement or dramatic gesture, you become that uncertainty made real. There is something worth understanding about energy. Every relationship, every dynamic, every interaction between two people is an exchange of energy. When one person consistently pours more than they receive, the natural tendency of the other is not gratitude. It is expectation. And expectation is the death of desire. But when the flow shifts, when the person who was once pouring stops, steps back, redirects that energy inward, the system is disrupted. The one who was receiving suddenly feels the cold of absence, like a draft under a door they never noticed was open. This is the moment the obsession begins to grow. You do not have to be cruel. You do not have to be distant forever. You do not have to withhold love or care or warmth in any permanent way. You simply have to learn this. Your presence is a currency, and like any currency, its value is directly tied to its supply. Flood the market, and the price collapses. Restrict the supply, and suddenly everyone wants in. Starve them of you, not because you are trying to play a game, but because you have finally understood your own worth. Because you have looked at what you were offering freely, recklessly, endlessly, and you have decided that it deserves more reverence than you were giving it. The obsession that follows is not a trick you played on someone else. It is the natural consequence of them finally realizing what they were standing next to all along. And perhaps the most powerful part of all of this is what happens to you in the process. Because in the act of pulling back, in the discipline of choosing your own silence over someone else's comfort, you stop being the person who needs to be chosen. You become the person everyone is trying to reach. And that is not manipulation. That is mastery.